He had just powerbombed Dominic Mysterio through the canvas. He had just called out Brock Lesnar in the middle of the ring. And instead of going to celebrate, instead of going to ice his knees, instead of doing anything a reasonable champion does after a main event performance, Oba Femi walked straight to Roman Reigns' private quarters and looked him dead in the eyes. Welcome back to Wrestling Stands, the channel that finds the moment after the moment, because that is always where the real story in WWE actually lives. I'm your host, and tonight we have an off-air confrontation from Baltimore that has the entire championship landscape heading into the summer rearranged in ways that nobody saw coming this specifically or this soon. Because after Monday Night Raw went off the air on the 15th of June 2026, Oba Femi did not simply have a strong night. He had the kind of night that ends with him standing inches away from Roman Reigns, telling the World Heavyweight Champion exactly what is coming for him and exactly when. This is the full breakdown. Every detail, every implication, and every reason why the road to SummerSlam just became infinitely more dangerous for the original tribal chief. Quick favor before we get into it, if you enjoy this kind of content, please smash that like button and hit subscribe. Over 98% of viewers watch without subscribing. It's totally free for you, but it means the world to us and helps the channel grow. Already subscribed? You're absolutely brilliant, thank you. Alright, let's get into the video. Let's start with the main event in Baltimore, because what Oba Femi did before he ever set foot near Roman's quarters established exactly the mindset he carried into that confrontation. Dominic Mysterio is not a soft opponent. Whatever your assessment of his journey and his character work over the past several years, Dominic has developed into a genuinely capable in-ring performer who has held his own against some of the most credible names on the roster. Oba Femi ended that match with a fall from grace powerbomb that did not just secure the win. It made a statement about exactly where Femi's physical dominance currently sits within the entire WWE landscape. And then, rather than simply walking to the back to let the moment breathe, Femi grabbed the microphone. He called out Brock Lesnar. The rivalry between these two men, currently tied at 1 win apiece, a series that has produced a loading bay brawl in Italy, a city block lockdown, and a hospitalized security guard along the way, is one of the most consequential and most physically dangerous storylines WWE is currently running. Femi calling Lesnar out in the ring is not a casual gesture. It is Femi reminding the audience, and reminding Lesnar specifically, that the tiebreaker is coming, that this story is not finished, that the Beast Incarnate's comeback narrative still has Oba Femi standing directly in the middle of it. That is already an enormous statement for one night. Most performers would consider that the headline moment of their evening and call it complete. Oba Femi was just getting started. The decision to go directly to Roman Reigns' private quarters, rather than returning to his own locker room to process the win and Lesnar call-out, is the detail that elevates this entire night from significant to extraordinary. Because Roman Reigns' private quarters are not a space that performers casually wander into. We have discussed, across multiple videos on this channel, the specific significance of Roman's pre-arranged private rooms, the way they function as a kind of inner sanctum within the broader backstage architecture of a WWE event, accessible to a very small circle of people under very specific circumstances. Oba Femi walking directly there, with the adrenaline of a fall from grace and also call-out still fresh, communicates something important about his state of mind. This was not an impulsive decision made in the heat of the moment. The directness of it, bypassing his own locker room entirely, going straight to the one place in that building where Roman Reigns' authority is most concentrated and most undisputed, suggests a level of premeditation. Femi had decided, before that match even started, that this was the night he was going to deliver this message. The win over Dominic and Lesnar call-out were the appetizer. Roman's quarters were always the destination. What happened when Femi arrived is the centerpiece of this entire story, and the details matter enormously to understanding exactly what kind of confrontation this was. Witnesses describe Femi looking Roman Reigns directly in the eyes. Not a glance, not a passing acknowledgement on the way to somewhere else. Direct, sustained eye contact, the specific physical posture of a man who has come to deliver something and intends for every word to land with full weight. And what he delivered was not a vague challenge or an open-ended statement of ambition. It was specific, precise. He told Roman Reigns that he intends to win the King of the Ring tournament, and that when he does, he is taking the World Heavyweight Championship from him. Let's sit with the audacity of that statement for a moment, because it deserves recognition on its own terms before we get into the strategic implications. Oba Femi is already a champion. He already holds gold. He does not need the King of the Ring designation to validate his standing in WWE. He has already proven, against Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, against Lesnar again in the loading bay chaos in Italy, that he belongs in any conversation about the most dominant physical forces in the company. And yet here he is, pursuing an additional tournament victory specifically because it provides the most direct possible pathway to Roman Reigns' championship. That is not a man padding his resume. That is a man with a singular, focused objective, using every available mechanism to ensure he arrives at SummerSlam with Roman Reigns standing across the ring from him. Let's talk about Roman Reigns' position in this confrontation, because the champion's response, or apparent lack of dramatic response, is itself meaningful information. Roman Reigns has spent the past several weeks managing an extraordinary number of simultaneous fires. The No Yes Men needed fallout with Jey Uso, the secret mission given to Jacob Fatu, Solo Siko's brutal ambush and theft of the Ulafala, the declared civil war with Solo's faction. Roman's plate, heading into this confrontation, was already overflowing with active conflicts requiring his attention and his resources. And now Oba Femi has walked directly into his private quarters and added himself to that list. Not as a future possibility to be managed eventually, as an immediate, declared, specific threat with a clear timeline and a clear mechanism for becoming real. Roman Reigns, whatever composure he displayed in that room, now has to factor a King of the Ring fueled championship challenge from one of the most physically dominant performers in WWE into a championship defense calendar that was already extraordinarily complicated. The question of how Roman actually responded, what he said, whether he dismissed Femi's declaration or engaged with it seriously, whether the encounter ended with words exchanged or simply with Femi delivering his message and leaving, remains one of the details that has not been fully reported. What we do know is that the confrontation happened, that it was direct and personal, and that it adds a name to Roman's growing list of immediate problems heading into the summer's biggest stretch of programming. Now let's talk about the mechanism that makes Femi's threat concrete rather than aspirational. He is positioned to compete in the King of the Ring final at Night of Champions on the 27th of June. A victory there does not simply add another accolade to his collection. It guarantees him a championship match against Roman Reigns at SummerSlam. Guaranteed. Not earned through some separate qualifying process, not subject to additional creative discretion about who deserves the next shot, a direct, contractual significant pathway from tournament victory to championship opportunity. This changes the entire complexion of Night of Champions. What might otherwise have been treated as a secondary show on the road to SummerSlam now carries championship-determining stakes. Whoever Oba Femi faces in that King of the Ring final, and the tournament bracket has been one of the most closely watched storylines on this channel, with multiple performers including Jey Uso pursuing the same crown. That final is no longer simply about the King of the Ring trophy. It is about who gets the guaranteed shot at Roman Reigns in Minneapolis. If Femi wins it, the SummerSlam landscape becomes Roman Reigns defending against a man who has already taken Brock Lesnar to a one-win tiebreaker series, who ended the Beast's comeback narrative once already at WrestleMania, and who has just walked directly into Roman's private quarters to deliver the news in person rather than through any official WWE channel. That is not a challenger who waits patiently for an opportunity. That is a challenger who creates the opportunity and then personally informs the champion that it is coming. Let's think about what this means for Roman Reigns' summer holistically, because Femi's declaration does not exist in isolation from everything else currently happening in Roman's world. If Jey Uso's own King of the Ring trajectory remains live, the bracket itself becomes a fascinating subplot independent of the Roman Femi question. Two performers with very different relationships to Roman Reigns, both pursuing the same tournament, with the winner's path leading toward either Cody Rhodes' undisputed championship or, in Femi's specific case, directly back to Roman's own title. And Solo Siko's war, the stolen Ulafala, the brutal ambush of Jacob Fatu, the declared civil war that Roman himself escalated with his "I will no longer beg, I will destroy" statement, is running on a completely separate track from the championship picture but consuming exactly the kind of attention and resources that Roman would otherwise need to fully focus on the Femi threat. A champion fighting a two-front war, one against a rebellious former family member seeking to dismantle his authority from within, another against an outside challenger seeking to take his championship through the most direct and most legitimate possible means, is a champion operating under considerably more pressure than the WWE Universe may have fully appreciated until this Baltimore confrontation became public. There is also the Brock Lesnar dimension sitting underneath all of this, and it deserves acknowledgement because it complicates Femi's path in ways that go beyond the simple tournament mechanics. Femi is currently tied with Lesnar at one win apiece, and he uses post-match microphone time to call Lesnar out directly. If that rivalry demands resolution before SummerSlam, if WWE's creative plans require Femi and Lesnar to settle their tiebreaker on the same calendar that also features the King of the Ring final and a potential championship match against Roman, Femi's road to Minneapolis is considerably more physically demanding than a single tournament run. A man pursuing a World Heavyweight Championship while simultaneously managing an unresolved blood feud with Brock Lesnar is a man operating at the absolute outer limit of what any performer's schedule and physical capacity can sustain. And yet Oba Femi, on the evidence of Baltimore, is not hesitating about any of it. He called out Lesnar. He confronted Roman. He is pursuing every available objective simultaneously, with the specific, relentless confidence of a man who has decided that the summer of 2026 belongs to him and is not interested in waiting for any of these conflicts to resolve in sequence. Here is where it lands. Oba Femi did not simply have a good night in Baltimore. He had the kind of night that announces, in the most direct terms available, exactly what WWE's championship landscape is going to look like heading into SummerSlam. He defeated Dominic Mysterio, he called out Brock Lesnar, and then he walked into Roman Reigns' private quarters and told the World Heavyweight Champion, to his face, that the King of the Ring crown is coming and the championship is coming right behind it. Roman Reigns is fighting a war with Solo Sikoa that has already produced blood and theft and declared destruction. He is managing the fallout from publicly diminishing his own named successor. And now he has Oba Femi, calm, direct, and utterly certain, standing in his private quarters with a guaranteed pathway to Minneapolis already in motion. Night of Champions, the 27th of June, the King of the Ring final. Whatever happens in that match determines who Roman Reigns may be defending his World Heavyweight Championship against in Minneapolis. And after what happened in Baltimore, there is exactly one name that the entire WWE universe is going to be watching that bracket for. The Tribal Chief has never had this many problems at once, and Oba Femi just made sure he is one of them. Thank you so much for watching. Wrestling Stands family means everything, as always. We'll see you in the next one.